Stock of the day, I thought we'd take a look at Rio, which has reaffirmed full year production guidance. Came out this morning despite reporting a 1% dip in iron ore shipments in the first quarter. Overall shipments, though, were up 3% on the same period last year to a 5-year high, as it leans on greater efficiencies and higher production from its West Australian mine. Looking ahead, the mining giant expects stimulus measures in China to drive a slow recovery in the world's biggest steel user and maker, as it reported its second highest ever iron ore shipments in 2023. It was that outlook on China which really interested me, of course, one of Rio's biggest customers. Rudi, what did you think of the update, production update, and their comments on China?
Don't want to spoil anyone's party, but I think it's very mainstream. I think that the comments made by BHP last year are not that dissimilar.
Are they talking their own book?
Well, they are, because if you invest in Rio Tinto or BHP, you're essentially investing in iron ore. I mean, they do a lot more, but at the end of the day, the bottom line is pretty much defined by iron ore. So yes, they are, but it doesn't mean that they are just talking hot air. I mean, the big surprise remains that iron ore has remained higher for longer in the past few years. That's why the share prices are where they are. The big question remains whether that price at some stage revisits a lower level or not. Right? I mean, the companies themselves are much more moderate in their forecasts. They think $100 per ton US is probably more accurate, maybe even 90. The price of iron ore is a lot higher. I mean, so basically, if you invest in those share prices, even though they've come down a little bit over this month,
off 5-year highs.
Yes, exactly.
They're meant to be cyclical stocks. So
well, they are.
Is this as good as it gets?
Well,
the
whole cyclicality has been taken out of them a little bit because of iron ore, which has surprised to the upside. But just some context about things. Back in late 2007, Rio Tinto share price reached 125.
Yep.
I mean, it's not that far off today. So the cyclicality is in there. You can keep the share price for 15 years, and all you have is a dividend and headaches along the way. So the whole point about cyclicality is obviously is a big question mark, given that we are still forecasting slowing growth in most economies this year and struggling China.
Yep.
Sentiment does a lot. I mean, there's constantly the expectation. We're now seeing still ongoing underwhelming data from China. So the expectation still is that the Chinese will do whatever it takes to support their economy. I mean, if you're happy with because it's all about taking risks. I mean, and the likes of Rio Tinto and BHP, they tend not to disappoint in the same manner as some of those smaller iron ore miners, or even just base metal miners or lithium miners do. I mean, they come out and they sometimes see the share price diving by. That doesn't happen with these big guys, but share price is quite high. Iron ore price is falling, but still quite high. I think there's no compelling reason, to be honest, to be there for the time being. I think it's a hold at best.
Right.
But then again, I mean, because they have surprised to the upside, it doesn't mean they can't surprise further to the upside. It's about the risk that you're willing to take. For me, it's not compelling enough.
Okay, to put new money in, but hold if you got it.
Yes.
Okay, Michael?
Yeah, look, I'm feeling a bit more optimistic on where this can be by the end of the year. I mean, we were fairly optimistic on the iron ore miners last year, and it has surprised. I mean, as Rudi knows, all the analysts have crept up their price targets for iron ore and the big miners over the past few months. Look, the big question is that set to continue this year. I think there's enough on balance to say it can. So when we look at, Rudi mentioned China, and as well as yourself, David, at the beginning, stimulus measures will obviously be a positive for these miners. But even if we look at global growth and we try to get a sense for where that's going by looking at global PMIs, I mean, you have these PMIs that operate like a sine curve.
Yep.
And at the moment we are at the bottom of that curve. So I think downside risk for the global economy is quite minimal from here. I'd be looking more for a recovery in the global economy this year. And that will obviously benefit the iron ore miners and other commodities as well. And obviously if markets head higher and investors take on more risk, you get a lower US dollar, which is good for the commodities as well. So, I mean, what could derail the iron ore price? I mean, it has been stronger than everyone expected. Could it be on the demand side? I think the demand side will be there. Could there be a massive increase in supply? I don't see where that could come from. So I think the iron ore price will remain fairly elevated. I mean, in the short term, is it going to drop another $5 or $10? That's impossible to know. So I'd be looking for a buying opportunity with Rio. I think the way it's trading at the moment, maybe there's another couple of dollars downside, if you want to finesse the share price. But ultimately, I think this pullback we've seen over the past few weeks will be an opportunity.
So you're saying a buy if it pulls back a bit further.
Yeah.
So a hold at the moment.
So it's a hold for the moment.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. BHP v Rio. Do you have it preferred?
I prefer BHP.
Right.
Historically, it's better run. You do have that extra mix in there. You've got your copper, which I think copper would do well. Obviously, they've got a bit of uranium. Everyone's excited about that. But look, BHP at these levels, I think, is a buying opportunity.
Copper versus aluminium, if you put the question.
It is what?
Yeah,
copper versus aluminium.
Right. Yeah.
So Rio is aluminium, BHP is more copper.
Yeah. Do you prefer out of the two?
I think a lot because alumina is cutting refinery. So I think a lot of people are getting more excited about aluminium now.
Right.
But that might just be a short-term thing. I think further out, I would prefer copper as well.
Right. And the uranium thing, issue with BHP as well. You've got that uranium chart at the moment, price chart, which looks like lithium a year ago. But it only needs BHP in the boardroom to go, let's bring Olympic Dam out of mothballs, and it's the world's biggest uranium producer, isn't it?
Yeah.
By a country mile.
Not sure whether that's true, by the way. It's Kazakhstan that's number one. And
as a country?
Yes. And
but as a mine?
They tend to. Well, in Olympic Dam, it's a byproduct. Olympic Dam is about copper.
Copper and gold.
And everyone is positive about copper, and I'm sure that they'll make their decisions on copper.
Yeah. I thought Australia was regarded as sort of the Saudi Arabia of uranium. We've got more uranium reserves here than any country in the world.
Maybe we have it under the ground, but
yes.
Australia's number 3 as a producer.
Yeah.
Number 1 is Kazakhstan. Number two is Canada.
Yeah.
So the biggest producer is basically listed is in Canada, Cameco.
Right.
And we come after that. So we're quite big, but we're not the OPEC of uranium. That's
Fingers